And welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And it's a Monday. And today our topic is demon or ally. Those parts of ourselves that scare us or that we try to avoid, that we feel shameful about or guilty about, and how if we were to engage them, that perhaps we can create new rules for interaction, and they may end up being one of our greatest allies. So before we explore this further, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms just to feel the deliciousness of that sensation. Really allow yourself to sink into the experience of that feeling. And as you do that, allow yourselves to become present right here, right now, to this remarkable physical form that allows you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good morning. It's so good to be here with you. And today's topic is demon or ally. And this topic actually comes up from a conversation with a client. And this person really experienced sort of an attack of these demons within themselves, these scary looking creatures that would come in to their awareness and frighten them, really frighten them, create tremendous anxiety for them. And initially, the approach that we took to the demons was to try and disempower them. And we did that by changing their voices, changing it to sort of a cartoon voice. And that worked. It worked for a while. But the thing is that the demons kept on coming. And they're a pretty powerful influence. And they've been around for years and years and years and years. So we took a different tack, and rather than trying to disempower the demons, we engaged in a conversation with them to discover what was their intention. So the idea here is that all our behaviors, however undesirable they may be, we can, if we work with those behaviors, or if we relate to those behaviors as having a positive intention, even if it looks horrible, if we look at these behaviors as if they have a positive intention, then we can open the door to discovery and transformation in a really dramatic way, actually. So in this case, we started talking with the demons to find out what was their positive intention. What were they up to? What were they intending? And what arose was that they were there to create drama, that they were there to create some juice in life. and heightened feeling experience, because heaven forbid we be bored, right? So better chaos and disruption than boredom is pretty fascinating. But anyway, so in discovering that their intention was really to create drama, to create emotion, to experience life. Good morning, Lisa. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. So we're talking about demon or ally. Good morning, Isabel. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. Demon or ally. So we're talking about this client who had these demons that would just sort of show up for them and scare the living daylights out of them, and create a lot of stress and worry and prey on all their insecurities. And it turns out when we decided to kind of befriend and honor the demons, and engage in a conversation, a detente, so to speak. When we engaged in conversation, the demons were quite forthcoming, saying that their job was to create heightened emotion, this experience of being alive, which is kind of sad, that the only way that we could feel alive is by feeling afraid. But, that is a way that we do feel alive, right? So in having the conversation with the demons, we recognized that the demons were pretty darn powerful, because they had stuck around for forever and managed to stick around regardless of whatever kind of interventions we tried to create. So we asked them if they'd be willing to create joy and happiness, heightened positive emotions. And they said yes. And so we were able to ask for a demonstration of their power, and they were able to create this heightened positive emotion. And it was really, really, really fascinating to make an ally of this energy that had been characterized as a demon, when in fact it was an energy that was a life-affirming energy in its own backward way. It was a life-affirming energy because it was there to create an experience of living, of being alive, of feeling, of being engaged with something. And I think that this is a really telling and valuable example, profound example, because we often have what we consider negative behaviors, and we often feel the victim of those, or at the effect anyway, of those behaviors. And when we can engage with the element of ourselves that is creating that behavior and inquire as to its positive intention, there's something available there for us to learn. And, I'm not saying that there are all these different parts of us running around in different directions, although it often feels that way. By characterizing it in that way, it gives us an entree to have dialogue with these parts of ourselves, and to create other than conscious agreements, because these aspects of ourselves are other than conscious being and awareness that is very active in creating our experience. And so if we can find an inroad into that matrix of intelligence and behavior, then we can affect change there. And I think that it's a really important thing to be looking at, because we are an ecosystem, and historically, culturally, we are trained into, and we've talked about this a bunch before, but we're trained into othering. We're trained into separating, and here I am doing it, but it's kind of with an intention to unify rather than other. But we're trained into being separate and exiling parts of ourselves that we don't like, or other people, or other groups, kind of looking at self and other, and there's this oppositional kind of vantage point that we've been trained into. And we do that with ourselves, the parts of ourselves that are maybe we have a part of ourselves that's angry or resentful or vengeful or sad, or any of these aspects of self, and there are parts of us that are happy and playful and childlike and all of it. When we can embrace those parts, it's the same embrace the shadow conversation, but it's not just the shadow, it's like all of it. And as we embrace all of it, we can allow ourselves to be all of it. And so by bringing in these pieces that we've exiled, or that we have neglected, or that we have vilified, when we bring them in and engage them, there's transformative power available there. So I'm wondering how this is resonating for you, if you have had experience with trying to connect with these aspects of self that are, like maybe we're running a loop in our head. Whatever that loop is, the energy behind that is pretty powerful to be consuming our attention so effectively, right? And so it may be useful to try to step back and have a dialogue with that part that is running the show there. We talked about how some of us have discovered that we have a 3-year-old running our show, or a 5-year-old. Maybe there was a decision that we made at a very young age that has then played out to be controlling our lives. And we get to reconnect with that part, and from a more mature vantage point, maybe create a new relationship with it, rather than having it take the wheel, so to speak. So the notion of parts of ourselves that we're considering demons, on whatever level, like whether that's really how we're considering them, or we're just demonizing them in some way or another, is a rejection of self. And what I've discovered is that it is through the acceptance of all aspects of our being, the more we're able to accept all aspects of ourselves, the more whole and complete and confident and integrated, by definition, we are. And from that place of wholeness, we have a greater capacity then to be responsive to life, to be present. Because how can we be present if we're fractured? Right? If there are all these parts of ourselves that are warring with each other, how can we be present? So we get to be peacemakers. And what does that look like? I think this is a relevant conversation, particularly in this moment in time? What does it look like to be peacemakers? And I don't have an answer that's a black and white kind of answer by any means. I mean, there are some situations in my family that have I would like to be able to be a peacemaker, and I just truly just don't know how. I truly don't know how. When there's no opening for authentic communication, how do you make peace? And it's been kind of heartbreaking for me, because I'm looking, I'm feeling into it, I'm sending love, and beyond that, I don't know. I haven't gotten clear on the action, and the action that I would like to take, I get the strong message that it's not going to forward the intention. So hello, Elaine, welcome. It's been a little while. Elaine says, demons are just love in disguise, a distortion seen by the false self, the one who sees the fear. All is love. So Elaine, I love where you're coming from, for sure, because you're coming from that place of presence. And saying this stuff, demons are just love in disguise. That's kind of what we're talking about, is just that these parts of ourselves have behaviors that have an intention that's gotten distorted, as you said, a distortion seen by the false self. The question is, how do we move from this place, or a place of separation and fear, into that place of love? And yes, we can give it lip service, but that's not what you're talking about, Elaine, and I know that. But the presence of love, presencing ourselves to that place of love, is a profound action. And it for you, perhaps, Elaine, you've arrived in that place and it's a constant state of being, perhaps, for you. But I don't think that that's the case for most of us. And the movement from here to there. So you say acceptance. And acceptance is, what is acceptance? Acceptance is perhaps the willingness to get beyond our own value judgments, get beyond our own indignation, our own sense of hurt, our own sense of pride, to be able to truly be in acceptance. It's not something that we get to by words. At least that's my awareness, that it doesn't matter. We can talk about it all day, but it takes action. It takes action. It takes intention. It takes a willingness to presence oneself, and to recognize, to be willing to see oneself and not judge, to be willing to compassionately see oneself. So Isabel says, I was angry for many years and felt that force in my mind on the real bad moments. Now I don't go there. But last October, someone triggered me and I allowed going to that quite a bit. Since then, I put love in my pain and accept the pain and love to turn it around. So I can relate, Isabel. I was angry for many years too. It's sort of a pattern in my family, and that's what I'm up against kind of right now, or that's what I'm facing in these challenges with my family, is the anger that's there. And I just keep sending love, but love can only be received when there's a willingness to receive it too. So, so you got triggered, and you allowed going to the place of anger. Since then, you put love in your pain, and that takes a deliberate, conscious effort. That's a choice, to be willing to allow the love to expand beyond the reaches of the pain, to allow the love to be bigger than the pain. And it's a big, big challenge. So Elaine says there's no doing when one can observe whatever shows up without judgment. That's the thing, Elaine. Most people cannot observe whatever shows up without judgment. So, you know, and I recognize that what you're saying is 100% true. You know, and so how do we get to that place of showing up without judgment? One of the ways is to recognize our judgment and to say, okay, oh, wow, I'm judging. Okay, what would it be like to suspend that judgment? So to continue with what you were saying, whatever shows up without judgment, no longer reacting in fear, but allowing what shows up to play itself out. When it has served its purpose, it will dissolve. So first of all, we get to find a way to get to beyond judgment, to not judge. And that is a key. And part of not judging is to recognize that we're judging and not judge ourselves for that, by the way. And then as we recognize that we're judging, we can say, well, who am I beyond that judgment? What am I seeing beyond that judgment? What if that judgment is just a judgment and I don't have to listen to it or believe it? And Isabel says, you're right, no words. Elaine is replying to Isabel, beautiful self. Love is taking responsibility for yourself and offering love to all aspects of you is the key. You're the only one that could congratulate you're getting it. So taking responsibility for yourself and offering love to all aspects of you is exactly what we're talking about this morning. And one of the question is, how do we get there? You know, and the truth is that enlightenment is a moment of grace or an experience of grace. And there is no linear passage from here to there. It's a quantum shift. And when we talk about taking responsibility for yourself, what we're also talking about is being responsible with yourself, to be recognizing these places of beingness that we come from, and to recognize the judgments that we place on others and on ourselves. When we're judging others, it's a projection of our self-judgment. And so as we recognize those judgments, we can dialogue with that part of ourselves that's bringing that judgment forth and say, hey, what's up with that? You know, what's the intention of that judgment? What's underneath it? And this can give us a way in to start to heal those elements of ourselves. So Elaine says, yes, they can. They just haven't gotten to that space of understanding yet or knowing, but they will if they choose to. Elaine, I think it's more complex than that. I really, truly do, because that choice, making that choice, while it may be simple, it's not necessarily easy until you do, until you can. And I think it's really important to be supporting people and finding a way to access more and more of that opportunity for grace. I'll just say it that way. Lisa says, that's a message I've been trying to get my daughter to embrace, but she sits in a place of judgment. She is so angry, but I have to let her come to me in her own time. You do. You do, Lisa. You totally, totally do. And I'm in this space with this family member. There are parts of me that want to rise up and be angry, and there are other parts of me that are just sad. There are parts of me that feel hopeless about it. There are parts of me that are just loving this person. And so those emotions that we experience, we get to heal the hurt that we experience. And it's so interesting to me, this, you know what, I can't go there because it's time for me to go. And I love you too, Elaine, very much. And Elaine says, I love you, Mira. Blessings, love, and blessings to you. You know, I love all of you. I'm so grateful. I am so grateful to, Elaine says, there are many paths on this journey. I simply share mine. I get it. But the thing is that you had so much trauma that got you to a place where you had the revelation that you've had. And God bless you that you made it through all those difficult challenges, and that it got you to this place of awakening and love. It's beautiful. It's just beautiful. And you're a bright light for everybody coming from that place. It's brilliant. So Rosalind says, hello, Rosalind, by the way, so good to have you here. So Rosalind says, good morning. Hello, core connectors, moving away from judgment. I wonder, how is this behavior serving me? Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like, we can be noticing the judgment. When we notice it, then we can address it with compassion. April, good morning. Great to have you here with us. Getting to a place where one can make such conscious decision is a whole journey in itself. Many blessings to you all. 100%, April. Exactly. Getting to the place where you can make that kind of conscious decision is a massive journey. And there are all kinds of tools that we can employ on the way. The first one is awareness, and to recognize the judgment and all of that internal conversation as feedback rather than as anything beyond that, because we tend to beat ourselves up pretty royally. As we can recognize things as feedback, that starts to free us to be able to observe it more objectively. Good morning, Dido. So glad to have you here with us. And Elaine says, I work with a lot of people and they do very well, and you really don't know what I do or who I am. Elaine, I'm so sorry if I've offended you. There's no intention to do so. And I'm sure you work very well with people. I get your compassionate, beautiful heart. I truly do. I truly do. And I honor you. And I think that, you know, it's just beautiful that you share here. And it's true. I don't know what you do or who you are. All I know is who you are in these conversations. And I'm very grateful to you for showing up with us in these conversations as part of this community. You always make very powerful and profound contributions. So as do the rest of you, I'm so grateful to you and our time together. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. Please, please, please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. So much love to you. Until next time.